sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Rayy-cism. If this is your first time of coming across this channel, sweetheart, kindly smash that subscribe button, turn on your notification so you are notified each time I upload, and please give this video a thumb up. I appreciate you all so much, and I am saying thank you all so much for all the love and support you all give me here. I am truly grateful. Thank you. So today we'll be talking something very important, but before we get into this, I am going to leave what started the whole conversation here. Somebody asks, the observation is clear evidence that white supremacy has deeper, more sinister motivation and makes no sense. Eat the rich, hashtag eat the rich, right? And this white man actually came through. He started by explaining the concept, the origin of Rayy-cism in America, and he went further into slavery. I mean, he actually ate this. He made so many great points. And then a lot of people were like, yo, black people have actually been saying this, and like, you know, and each time there is a debate on this, white people are always like, the response is always like, I never owned slavery, like, you know, or I never owned slaves. Which is exactly why, like, you know, we need to come together. But the truth is that I am actually not seeing there is need for everybody to come together and fight what is fighting everybody, right? But I am sure that I am not seeing that anytime soon. Like, there is not going to be any come together to dismantle the bourgeoisie, because he went further to explain why the bourgeois are the ones, like, you know, that got more power to do so many things, and the poor are the ones, like, you know, dancing around because the bourgeois are using the proletariat to fight black people and other people. Stay close to the screen. I'm just going to roll this clip. We'll come back to talk about it. Let me know what you all think in the comment section. Straight up, here we go.
Bro, he's completely right. If you go back and you look at the origins of American racism, you'll see that it has never served the interest of white people. Like, it's paradoxical that in order for the Southern social structure of planter, poor white, slave to even exist, it required an indifference of poor white people to the suffering of black people under the institution of slavery, while that same institution deliberately excluded them from the economic and political process. Let me make it clear that being born a white man in the South didn't mean you would accomplish shit. You had to own property if you wanted to vote in order to hold office. And how were you ever going to acquire property if no one was ever going to pay you? Because why would I pay you when I got slaves? Slaves that ultimately it's your indifference that allows me to have. Hell, it wasn't until the Civil War that every state affirmed that just being born a basic white man meant that you had the right to vote. And I suppose they had to whenever they got ready to send the massive poor whites off to war. It's like, hey, bro, go fight this war, and when you get back, I'll let you vote for me. Like, it's a myth that the South couldn't build factories, bro. The South had the access to capital. They could have built factories and rivaled the North in manufacturing industry, but there's a problem with that. One is that the indifference of white people is built on the propaganda and the belief that God made black people to be inferior to white people. But that kind of goes out the window the moment you have a factory that's being operated wholly by slaves doing skilled trade work. So if I'm a planter and I'm considering building a factory, and I understand that I can't operate my factory with slaves due to the constraints of the racist ideology that I've employed across the South, that means that I've got to employ white people, which brings me to my second problem. If I'm going to be hiring white people, I'm going to have to pay them. And if I pay them, that means that they might have the ability to acquire property. Property being the minimum threshold for voting. You might start voting in a way that I don't want you to. I'm also going to have to educate you to a degree in order to have competent people to run the factory. At a bare minimum, I have to address the illiteracy in the South. So you mean I got to pay you and I got to teach you how to read? You're going to be able to vote and you're going to be educated? At that point, you pose a very real threat to me as the ruling class in this delicate social and political balance that I've created that benefits only me. In the interest of maintaining control on this delicate system that they had built, they decided against educating the masses, they decided against building factories and creating upwards economic mobility for the poor whites. Are you drawing any parallels between what happened in the early 1800s, mid-1800s, and what has happened today with the demise of manufacturing, the degradation of education, the elimination of voting rights? Are you starting to see a pattern? I say all of that to bring it back to his point. He's right. Racism has always existed as a functional tool for classism. It has always served to keep the ruling class protected from us ever meaningfully organizing and challenging them on anything. It has always existed to keep us economically and politically destitute. It has always existed to keep you exactly where you are. Bro, he's completely right. If you go back and you look at the origins of American racism, you'll see that it is never...
I said it in my other videos. I have told you guys before, It is the rich versus everyone else. And please remember, it's not 3% of the population, it's 1% of the population against the rest of us. They pit everybody against each other. They make the racism exist more and more. As long as you can fuel the racism, as long as you can make it so that that's what everyone is focusing on, then they won't focus on the fact that you are literally trying to rule the country. Just really think about all of the people who buy their senators, who get judges to do what they want them to do so that they can buy property and do different things. And look at all the tax exemptions. We complain about the state in which the country is in as far as debt and stuff is concerned, but yet give the richest people in this country. Exactly. Now, is racism something that is big in this country? Absolutely. But it is fueled by that 1%. Again, as long as we have that to focus on, right? As long as the dumb can be manipulated, as long as the people who know better can be kept back and down, and nobody listens to them, the better off it is for the rich. Now, this is not a Republican or Democrat, liberal or conservative thing. It is a rich versus everyone else thing. Because please understand, people who have $1 million are broke to rich people. If you have $10 million, you're broke to rich people. You are with us. You are to everyone else as well. People who are considered, well, I don't even think they're considered it anymore, but were considered upper middle class are now just middle class, if not lower class, based on inflation. People who have households who have 2 parents, 2 jobs, have this income coming in, and then they still hardly making ends meet. Really think about it. But yet, unfortunately, how we vote and the people we vote for matters. The only thing that won't change, all of the rich people, all of them are in a rich person's pocket, regardless of what side they're on. They all are bought as far as I'm concerned. I can't begin to tell us how we fix this problem. But the truth of the matter is, if y'all remove racism from your mindset, as in stop being racist so that we can stop complaining about you being racist and actually work together, we can probably fix more than we know. But we have to learn to listen to each other, because I've heard people from both sides of the spectrum make valid points about things. But the problem is, these valid points have to be made about everyone and not just directed towards a particular demographic. And that's why a lot of you all come off as racist, and we ain't changing our mind on that. It's because, like the example of saying, black people destroy their neighborhoods, white people destroy our neighborhoods. It's not just about black people destroying anything. People do dumb shit. It's not a black or white thing. People do dumb shit, regardless of what that dumb shit is. It can be done by people. It's not about race. But we make it about race as a defense mechanism, and because you guys hate us so much. But you only hate us because they told you to. You can't give valid reasons as to why you have this thing against minorities, particularly black people. Other minorities can't give a valid reason as to why they have this thing against black people either, other than the fact that you allow people to put it in your heads that a whole group of people was bad. But let us say the exact same thing. You give us the same response we give you. So how is it that if you all as a whole isn't bad, even though you've exhibited the most violent behavior throughout history, How is it that you all as a whole isn't bad, but we are? You have the logic, but you're doing exactly what they don't want you to do. Well, actually, you're doing exactly what they want you to do, not using it. You want to be more prosperous? Everybody should be more prosperous. In order for us to bring the rich down a notch, we got to be more educated in general. Think about all of the money that they're taking out of public schools and putting it into private schools. They want your kids to work for their kids. You guys are allowing them to do it. We're all allowing them to do it, and it has to stop. But we got to start somewhere. And again, that's another conversation, because I don't know where the hell that somewhere is.
Bro, he's completely right. If you go back and you look at the origins of American racism, you'll see that it is...
Everything you said is true. I'm not trying to say you're wrong. However, there were some skilled tradesmen who were slaves and were black. If you look at the history of the rebuilding of the White House, it wasn't just slave labor. They didn't just move rocks and stuff like that. There were actually skilled masons who were there to cut and set the stone. The problem is, these guys were paid like white men, and their owner took all of the wage. They may have, I think I read a story where there was one guy who gave a certain portion of it to his slaves, but the majority of their skilled labor was still paid to the owner. So even though you did have skilled labor, they didn't, it just made it that much worse for white men, right? Poor white men. Why should I pay you, whatever the wage is, when I can probably pay this guy who's using black slaves less because they're black? People in the South don't understand that racism really isn't about them, right? When I was going to school, the term was WASP, White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. However, if you look it up, the original interpretation of WASP wasn't White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. It was wealthy Anglo-Saxon Protestant. They had to open it up to poor people, because without the poor people, they couldn't control the other people. When they freed the slaves, they had to open it up to poor people so that they could keep the slaves down. And there's a really good scene, and I don't know how true it is. There's a really good scene in that movie, Men of Honor, where Chief Sunday is harassing Petty Officer Bashir. And he says that he understands his stink because it followed him his entire childhood, because he constantly had to move, because his daddy couldn't or wouldn't work the fields for the same wage that a black man would do it. So that's a thing. It's real.
Economic and political process. Let me make it clear that being born a white man in the South didn't mean you would accomplish shit. You had to...
Yo, I am 47 years old. This was the most comprehensive and accurate explanation for racism from a white person that I've ever fucking heard, if not any person, honestly. Because I remember listening to the stories of Jim Crow, and my people was like, yo, white business owners, Jim Crow won't their idea. Like, it was the government that said they did Jim Crow. Why would white people turn down all that money now that black people got it? Of course, they would want black people, in their establishments and giving them money. Or at least that's what I was told from my ancestors.
Bro, he's completely right. If you go back and you look at the origins of American racism, you'll see that it is...
In the late 1700s, going into the 1800s, that's when this country started seeing what they would call, or what we would now call, rebellions against austerity. And what I mean by this is that poor white people were, in fact, teaming up with black people, both enslaved and free. And they were, like, legitimately rebelling against the bourgeois, against, the capitalists, against the landowners and any other bullshit aristocracy. Like, they were rebelling against them really hard. Like, hold on. In 1892, Tom Watson, a American statesman and abolitionist, told a crowd of poor white people, "You are kept separately so that you may be separately fleeced of your earnings." And paraphrasing, he also said that it is better for the wealthy elite to keep both of y'all separate, because your segregation is the keystone upon which lies capitalism. So, yeah. And that happened in history. That's one of the reasons as to why, being a historian and an archaeologist means a lot to me, because it involves research, education, and changing the narratives that have literally been poisoning the minds and the education system within this country for decades. It's also a known fact that poor white people and black people all the time did rebellions together against the rich white elite class, to the point where they then started passing laws making it illegal and resulting in harsher penalties and punishments if a white person was ever seen even walking beside or near or within the vicinity of a black person. And if they were assumed to be walking together, then they were plotting together, and that was punishable by heavy penalties or even death.
So this is all we got from the stitches, and really, this is absolutely mind-opening. And then the other lady talked about dismantling racism, right? I am going to start by saying that black people did not create racism. Let me start with that. So if anybody is talking or thinking of dismantling racism, it should be them working on how they are going to dismantle it, because this got nothing to do with black people. The bourgeois were the ones that started this segregation, because this segregation they did was to separate the bourgeois from the proletariat, right? And which is still working to this very moment. I mean, there is where black people are supposed to live, there is where black people are not supposed to live, right? And also, they make a lot of money from, like she said, private school and public school. They get a lot of money from public school and put it in private school, because they want to keep the proletariat where they are. And then the bourgeois keep rising. The capitalism we're talking about, right? Because they do not want the proletariat to work for, they want the proletariat to work for the bourgeois. They do not want the bourgeois to work for the proletariat, right? And you see this racism. Black people did not create it. It is them. If they really want to, it's more like calling on, let's work together and dismantle this. I am sure black people do not trust white people. And also white people do not trust black people. So it is going to take a whole lot of, how do I say that? A whole lot of strength to bring everybody together. I am not sure how that is going to work. But everybody want to actually, okay, black people, not everybody, because I don't see most of the white people wanting to coexist, right? Black people just want to be on their own. Let them dismantle all the things they created and allow them to exist peacefully in their own community or in their own environment. This is where I am going to draw the curtain. Thank you all so much for all the support and love. I appreciate you all and see you all in my next video. Bye for now.